Yes.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
One of my
We
daughters
official,
can't be.
y'all. We official.
What if I was trying to be sneaky and record y'all? They would have told all my business. Okay. Thanks,
I
guys.
appreciate it.
Okay, so let's just start. Let's get to it. Okay, so my first question is like, when did you start writing about your characters, Candace and Karina? And is the book inspired by anybody in your past or present life?
Hmm. Well, deeper question than you think. So I started writing it. I'm embarrassed to say I started writing it like more than 10 years ago. Um, I I I started writing this particular book back in 2009.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, slow writer. Um, I say this particular book because I've been writing in the middle of doing a bunch of things forever. I write bits and pieces. I want to show y'all. Hold on. I have this satchel. I think I can pick it up. This big old satchel that has bits and pieces of books that I have started to write, stories I've started to write over the years that don't get finished or almost get finished, and then I go
Right.
on to something else. And so this particular story I started way back then. Now, is everybody on this call? I don't know if you finished reading it, so I don't want spoilers, but
Yeah,
I
we did.
You
I
can spoil, baby. Spoil it.
I read a newspaper article back then um, about this abandoned baby. And the baby it was a newborn baby that had been th- thrown, placed, I don't know, put in the bushes by an apartment complex that I used to live in. And I just moved
Wow.
to the apartment complex. And they found this newborn baby in the ivy of these bushes, right where I used to live. And it was all in the news, and people were talking about it. And they found who the mother was, and she got arrested. And everybody was talking about this woman and how she could do this, and she had hidden the pregnancy and stuff. And it just didn't. I mean, it didn't sit right in my spirit. I just couldn't. Everybody was just talking about how horrible she was and all the things she could have done, and they arrested her, and she spent some time in jail, and then the story disappeared. But that story just kept sitting with me, and I kept thinking, okay, well, we know what's going to happen to her, but what happened before that? How did she come to that? Because there's so many things she could have done, and what happens after that? What are the people that know her? What's her family gonna do? What's happened to that baby when that baby finds out this is how you started out in life? And so it just kept floating around in my head. And then probably around the same time, one of my sister, I'm sorry, I'm looking down and Michelle Watson's I don't know if it's avatar, but the picture that you have up, not showing your real face, it's her holding the camera looking at me like this. I'm like, stop taking my picture. Every time I look down, she's just like, click, click, click. But my sister asked if her daughter could come live with me for a little while. She's a teenager, and her and my daughter looked like they could be twins. They were
Oh,
teenagers, and they looked like they could be twins, but they weren't acting the same. Um,
Mm.
and so my niece needed to kind of straighten up her act a little bit, and so they weren't doing what Karina and Candace were doing, but they sort of put me in the mind of these girls who had grown up together, and then they were kind of starting to part.
oh.
That was
Mm.
in my mind too. So though, like you take different little things that are happening, and I don't know, they just kind of would percolate.
Okay.
Okay, I have a
So
question.
Who's that?
Kim. So, did you ever think to reach out to the people involved in the real case with the baby?
I didn't. It,
mhm.
I did not. That's a good question, but I didn't think to do that.
I can see how that would be awkward. But
Yeah.
I probably would have tried just because, like, girl, what happened?
At the time, well, no, I just said no, I didn't. But at the time, I wasn't like writing the story about them. And
Mhm.
I also was just this book sort of kind of percolated over time. So in 2009, I'm trying to think. I was a lawyer. I was a lot of things. I was a practicing lawyer. I had my kids. I had raised my sister. I was my daughters were in sports. I was a teen mom. I was doing a bunch of different things at the same time. And so writing was something I would like sneak and write and find time. That was my find time for myself. So it'd be nice if I could say, oh yeah, and then I was writing and I was on chapter this and chapter that.
Mhm.
But no. It was just kind of happening in bits and pieces.
Okay. Well, did you have or do you have an Aunt Azora in your life? Because we all loved Aunt Azora.
Yes. And Zora, I have been blessed with Swain Izoras and Mama Ella's in my lifetime at different times in my life. So when I was younger than Karina and Candace, I had those types of people, growing up. By the time I was a teenager, I probably had you put them together. I had some people like that, yeah. And then I try to be those characters
Mm.
to a bunch of young women in my life now.
That's a blessing.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
you need Azoras in your life.
Yes, you do. You do. Okay, so which characters presented the most challenges? Because we know that some of them were a little bit more difficult than others, but for as far as like writing, which ones presented the most challenges? And then like what about those characters was challenging to write?
Hmm, that's a good question. You know, I don't know. I think for me, they're just full people, like they're not in and of themselves, they're not challenging to write because they're just being themselves. They're just facing what's going on with themselves. I think looking back or as I listen to you all talk about them and reacting to them, it's interesting because so many people can't stand Karina. I didn't know Karina was gonna be such a bitch to y'all when she
Listen,
was written. As she was growing up, I was like, oh, nobody feels sorry for Karina. I didn't realize. I'm walking around
listen.
talking to people like, wow, poor Karina, they don't feel for her at all.
I tried really hard in the beginning to like play devil's advocate and be like, okay, hold on now. Karina's not so bad. But the more we kept reading and the more she kept doing and saying, I was just like, okay, I
Right.
can't give you any more benefit of any more doubt here because you're just not good.
She was doing too much. She started doing too much. I was riding for her for a while. She just started doing way too much. Like, girl, I can't ride with you anymore.
Nobody felt her soul, her spirit. She just was having such a hard time.
After that second phone call she hung up on, that was it. That was it.
talking,
Personal.
talking about, I
Personal.
thought you were going to call back. Why would I call back? You ain't send me my money. Too much. Too much.
She just
Oh,
thought she
man.
would have another chance. She was just all caught up in herself.
Oh my gosh.
I
I,
felt like she was exemplifying how we want to act when our siblings piss us off. Like, I feel like a lot of us might not have made the same choices that she wanted, but I know I am one of like 6 girls. So it's plenty of times where I wanted to act those ways with my sisters. I just didn't act on it. So I kind of felt her. I just was like, damn, you really did that. Like, you really hung up in her face. Like, ooh, you bold, girl. You to me, I can't be.
that's a good point, because I don't think I was consciously thinking it, but I think as I was writing, Karina was the good girl. And I think my own living experience, I always had to be the good girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you ask like, oh, which one was hard to write? I thought, oh, well, Karina was easy to write. But you're right. As the good girl, you don't get to hang up. You have to do. Karina was always doing what she was supposed to do. So those few times that she didn't, she hung up on Candy. To me, it was like, well, those were just little things. She hung up because she's always doing what she's supposed
Always doing
to
the
do.
right thing. Yes, as
Always
siblings, when we
doing.
always do the right and we keep doing it, at some point it's like, I don't want to do right no more. I'm ready to play the bad guy today because what? So I felt that. Like, I really felt like, dang, all the times that I've been super nice and had my siblings back and went above and beyond, and they got to wild out and do X, Y, and Z. And I chose to still be the good sibling when I should have hung up in their face. Like, she really was giving me vibes of that, like doing everything that we want to do.
And I think for her, even hanging up on Candy, those were two little things. She acted out in two little ways. She hung up the phone twice, but in the midst of hanging up, she was raising Candy's baby. She was taking care of Mama Ella. She was going to school and getting those grades. She missed out on her college experience. So all of the great things she was doing, she hung up the phone two times. So I think
Yeah.
from her perspective, big deal. She hung up the phone twice
Mm,
because from her perspective,
mhm.
Candy left on her own volition.
Mhm.
Candy had the ability to call. Candy could have done a whole bunch of different things. Candy could have just came on home. Candy could have called again. Candy has the ability to do whatever Candy wants to do. But Karina's in a box. Karina can only do what she can do in her box.
Mm.
Her perspective, I did two things that weren't nice. Boo hoo you. So I think Karina just never saw herself from the outside looking in like, okay, I did two not nice things. You gonna say that's bad compared to all the things that other people do? And
Yeah.
so that's why I think, Karina didn't see it so badly.
I think we also have to keep in mind that they were children. When
Thank
you're
you.
children and these big things are happening or these little things are happening, you don't necessarily think that it's going to have a big impact on the rest of everything else. I'm sure she didn't think that hanging up on her sister would cause so many things to happen after that. She's a
Right.
kid. She wasn't thinking about the aftermath of anything.
And it was happening the one time something big was happening for her. She was in love, and this was happening, and the love of her life was coming to, and he was leaving, and this, that, all these things were happening to her. And she was 17. She was a little younger even than Candy. And so this was a big thing happening for her. So that is really important, I think, to keep in mind their age and what's happening in their brains at
Mm-hmm.
17 and what the world looks like from their perspective at that time. So all of that stuff was happening. So you asked like what characters were difficult to write. I think one thing I will say in terms of the difficulty in writing or I what I like to keep in mind or want to be authentic about is in writing male characters, right? So I'm a woman writing in male characters, and at the time I was younger, obviously, but wanting to try to stay true and be authentic to their voices. And so talking to guys and young guys at the time, and I think I think it's true for women. I'll say black women because that's all I can speak for. Um, but we have a tendency in real life to have full conversations with black men who aren't even present, right?
Mm.
So I'm gonna say this, and then he probably would say that, and then I say that, and then I know he's gonna say that, and we've had full conversations with guys that aren't in the room, don't know we said it, and we've decided what they said, right?
Yeah.
That we said that, and he said that, and we act on what we think they said and thought, and then they might maybe be privy to the conversation later because we're mad at them for what they already said, and so I want to think about that, and be careful about that in writing too, and so writing from Nick's perspective or Xander's perspective or the dad's perspective, what would they actually say in those conversations, and how would they behave in those situations? So I can pull back on my own recollections and experiences of people I know, but still you got to be careful, right? Because you don't know exactly what's going on in anyone's head, but in a man's head. And so I try to, I that's some research I do try to do, and to reaching out to guys and saying, does this sound right?
Yeah.
Um, but I like to get the perspective from male readers and say, did this ring true? So I listen to you guys when you're reading and say, tell me. So I really am happy when guys, when you read and you say, yeah, that didn't sound right.
And I really appreciate you doing that as an author, because I know a lot of us have probably read books where the dialogue just did not sound realistic,
Mm-hmm.
relatable, or anything. So it really does make a difference, and you can tell like when authors take the time to put that effort in. So I really did appreciate that. I thought it was, I mean, I'm not a man, but I thought it was authentic. I was real into it. So
For the men on the call, any responses to that?
No, I like that. That's a good idea because sometimes um when women try to write from a male perspective, I read it and I'm like, I would never say that. I would never. That don't even sound like nothing. Who wrote this? I would not talk. So when I was reading the male perspectives, it sounded like something I would say or how I would act. So you did a great job with that.
I really appreciate that. And I would appreciate, if there's something in there that you're like, generally good, but this right here, that didn't hit right. I would appreciate you letting me know that,
Oh
because
yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
that's real. And I've reached out to men I know to say, okay, check me on that, because we do have that tendency. And that's important, I think, for people to hear it, not just like, did the story flow, but
Right,
one of the things I want to do in my writing is trigger people to think and have real conversations about the underlying thing, the underlying issue. And if it doesn't come across as authentic, it's not going to then trigger those conversations. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to get you to start talking about forgiveness or secrets or whatever it is if the story itself didn't resonate with you.
right,
If you're distracted by, this isn't even something I would do, or I would talk about, or that would happen, then
right.
you're not going to be comfortable talking about the real issue, I don't think.
I agree. Speaking of the guys, I think collectively, everyone who's read the book, we want more from Nick. We want Nick's story.
Yeah.
Is
Oh
Are we
yeah,
gonna get more of Nick in book two? Because I feel so bad for Nick. Like I know he wasn't perfect. There was things that he did obviously that wasn't right, but I kind of feel like overall he really got one of the shortest ends of the sticks in the whole story because he was oblivious to so much. And then for him to learn everything at the end, and then it was over. It was like, oh my God, I'm still thinking about Nick.
Poor Nick.
I know, poor
Poor
Nick.
Nick. Is there a book two?
There's things that we can do with Nick.
Okay.
There's things we can do with Nick. There's
Yeah.
book two. So yes, there's book two in the midst. Book two is being worked on. There's a couple themes in book two going on. It's so interesting because there's people that are worried about Nick, what's going on with Nick. But then what about that thing that happened at the end. The secret is going to
Who
the
was listening, right?
Yes,
Period.
well, don't tell us
Who
who
was
was
running out of
listening, but who
water?
was listening?
Yeah, don't wait.
Or
No,
was
Who was in the
anybody
kitchen?
listening? Was anybody listening? Maybe the secret just goes to the grave. I mean,
No, because
Samaya
what
was
happens in
playing
the dark
sweet.
comes to light. It ain't going to the grave.
Samaya hopped back in the bed. She was not asleep. She hopped right back in that bed.
She was definitely not asleep. And I
She about
feel
to hop out
like
that
big
window.
deal. I mean,
Rena
okay.
was listening too. Listen, okay?
But haven't we had enough of Karina? I mean,
Yes.
who
I
wants to
mean,
really?
we
What
have
else?
had enough of Karina, but can you imagine if she finds out that her, come on, that's cold.
That's wild. That's
I mean, Karina could go over the edge, y'all.
This is
If
very true. I didn't even think about that. That's very true.
I
Yeah.
just felt
She
like
might
the
lose it.
secrets, like the lack of communication and the secrets, it made the book what it was. But it also, like you said, when you can apply it to real life and you can really like delve in it, like, oh my God, and think about all the secrets that's in your family. It was so much stuff like when my grandfather, Michael, I am talking. Sorry, y'all, that's my son. It was so much stuff like when my dad passed or like when my grandma passed that we were finding out after the fact, like secrets that was being held. And like I think that being the theme of the book, it should definitely keep going with, oh, somebody knows. You know what I mean? Like somebody knows more because that's the theme of it. It's like opening communication within the family. I appreciated that. I was like, yeah, what's the problem with the book? The problem with the book is it's telling black folks they need to learn how to communicate and don't be sneaky.
Period. Nailed it. That's it. That's the message. Speaking of
Well, there are
secrets,
always more secrets. That is true. But some people can handle it and some may not. Karina may not be able to handle it if there's more secrets out there. She might flip out. Or Tamaya, if
yes.
it's a secret with Samaya, she may not. There's a lot to, if
Mm.
you were a teenager and found out that you had been put in a box out on the sidewalk,
whew,
if that was your beginning, and then you found out that the person who was you thought was your mother wasn't your mother, and the person that you thought was your father or was your adoptive father was your actual father, made by
oh
a person
God,
that was you didn't even know about was your aunt, but now they don't want to tell that because they're worried about the mother who wasn't even your mother. Huh, that would be a lot. Be a lot to deal with.
That'll be a
absolutely.
I don't know, but would you just be sad? Would you be
Crashing out.
confused?
I mean, there would be sadness, confusion. There would be lashing out. There would be acting out. It would just be.
Maybe you just wouldn't want to be involved with these people at all.
It'd be Candy 2.5.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. Mm.
No, wait.
Maybe
Without the
because
drugs.
you're only 17, right? But you don't need to do drugs because now you're 17 with access to money.
Yeah.
I mean, but realistically, let's think about this for a second. If you were a 17-year-old who did go through all of this, what would stop you from turning to drugs?
Mhm.
This is a lot to deal with for a child.
It's a whole lot to deal with. You've lived a privileged life.
Mm-hmm.
And you know so much in this day and age. At this point, it's 2005. You know more. You have access to a lot of things that you didn't have, that Candy didn't have access to. Candy left in a minute. She was in shame, right? She was hiding things. She left in shame and secrecy. This is different. Samaya would be in a different situation, and her leaving or doing whatever she does would be for retribution. It's a different way. She'd be trying to get back at these people.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever she does would be fueled by something different.
Right.
I don't know. Different kind of book. Not really about secrets.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Off the
But you have Candy. Candy, her story. Is her story done?
Yeah. And someone in that chat also asked, when do you expect book two to be completed?
Well, y'all, as much as you all have really helped me so much with your acceptance of book one, I need to sell a whole bunch more of book one.
Okay, say less. We got you. We're gonna post it everywhere.
I gotta get this book out here. I need people to read this, and selling a couple hundred books in this day and age does
Yeah.
not a bestseller make.
Mm.
So I gotta get this out here and market it and promote it and find thousands of people who are like you
Yeah.
and really get it out there. And that's what I need help with while I'm working on book two. So that's my challenge.
Do you feel like you have to limit your writing style to kind of make it fit for everyone, or you just write what you want to write? Because a lot of people write for a specific audience, and that puts a lot of pressure on the writer. But do you feel like you have to limit yourself sometimes?
I think if I had I think it has a lot to do with when and why you're writing. I think if I had followed this dream of being a writer years ago and made it my primary career path, yes, it would have been like, oh, I am going to be a best-selling author and I'm going to get a traditional publisher, and this is, if I had done that in my 20s or 30s, then it would have been in what does the market want and how am I going to get out there? I have had a whole career, and this is my retirement journey, and this is not what's gonna feed me. So I recognize I am gonna do this because it is my passion, and I'm blessed to be able to have a little bit of retirement money to feed me. So no, trying to get a traditional book deal is crazy out here. So that's why I self-published. And I don't think that I'm not suited to trying to write to whatever somebody else tells me to write. I don't think I would do well with that. I think I have to write to what speaks to me and
Right.
hope and pray that there are people that want to read it. Um,
They
that's
will.
just, you know.
They
I
will.
just
So
be
I
me.
I heard you say that you've had a whole career. So I did a little digging. I found out you are a practicing attorney. Do you see yourself writing like any courtroom dramas or crime fiction?
I just recently retired. I was practicing up until like 2 years ago. Um, my my husband passed unexpectedly, and when I stopped working to as he was diagnosed and went into hospice, and then I sat down and didn't get back up. So I'm not practicing. I I I think it's possible that there will be legal stuff that might seep in from time to time, but I don't think I'm gonna end up writing like I don't think that's what kind of writing I'll do. I There's a lot of people that are invested in that work, and I love reading those types of that type of writing, but I don't think that's my calling. I think my passion is more just about writing about folks as they find their way through life, and the stuff that they encounter along the way. I was an employment lawyer, and one of the reasons I was an employment lawyer is because people bring their whole selves to work, and they do everything at work that they do every day, all day, throughout life, and helping get them out of situations at work and trying to keep them from losing their jobs because they were doing things that they shouldn't have done at work, um, was part of what I was all about. And so I just think understanding how people move through life and the things that affect them, um, and understanding all of the pieces, all the moving pieces that make us who we are and how it fits in is more what drives me. And I think that comes out in my writing more than like, and then the jury went out. And then, like that could come in. It's not my thing.
Okay. Kim, you had a question?
I did. In regard to Karina and the baby, how did you come to decide that you would have Karina mother the baby? And did you feel like it was necessarily fair for her to have to give up her teenage years to raise her sister's baby in secret?
Um, I think that it wasn't so much that she was originally going to raise her. I think Mama Ella took on that responsibility because that's the way things happen in a lot of Black families.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mama Ella was hopeful that Candy would make her way back home.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in a lot of Black families, responsibility falls on responsible people.
I
And
agree.
so, because this is family, this is what we do. Karina was at home and Mama Ella was working. Mama Ella had to work, and so because Mama Ella took Karina and Candace in when their parents died, and this is just how we do things. And so it wasn't so much that she was expecting Karina to raise the baby. It was more that, this is just the way things work out. And, Mama Ella unexpectedly started having some medical issues. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, the book kind of moves forward quickly and it makes it seem as though Karina just became the mom immediately. But it wasn't so immediate. She was still going to college and she was taking her classes and stuff. And she even moved away and was on campus for what, a year or so
Yeah.
before Ella had the hip injury. And so she gradually took a greater and greater responsibility for the baby. But I think because Karina had been from the time she was small, she always was that kid that stepped into a role of being responsible. That it, Mama Ella maybe shouldn't have expected that, but that's sort of the way she had been raised and the way she saw herself. And so I think that happens in a lot of families that one of the kids puts herself in that situation or is put into a situation of being responsible and taking on that role and then may resent it,
Mm-hmm.
but that's who you end up being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. And then
So,
and ends up being the one for the whole family. That's ends up like, oh, why y'all always go over to Nunu's house for the holidays? Well, Nunu been
right.
doing this ever since she was 17 years old. She's been cooking and she learned how to make a turkey, and we just always go over to Nunu's house. And by the time you talk to Nunu and she's 48 years old, she's like, I never did want everybody coming to my house. They just been do this ever since I was 17 years old. I cook one turkey and they always think I want to do it. And, that's
Uh,
just the way our families are.
Yeah, that's my aunt for sure. Did
I
any,
have a question. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to open the floor to you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was gonna ask if you had any alternate endings in mind.
Oh, that's a good
oh
one.
yeah, good question.
That is a good question. Alternate middles, endings, beginnings.
All
There's
that, all that.
versions of this
Well,
book.
maybe just tell us which one you wrestled with the most.
That's a good question. Let me think. Which one did I wrestle with the most? Well, I wrestled with whether Karina should know about Xander being the
Mm.
father.
Oh.
That one was
Understandable.
a big one. I had a version where she actually knew and she kept it a secret that she knew.
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
That would be some growth from Rena. Wow.
yeah. Well, whether she grew about it or not, she knew.
But to not mention it or to not say anything, that's big.
She knew. But what she did with that knowledge,
Oh.
that was a little shaky. But there was a point in which I had a couple versions, one where she knew and she didn't say anything, but she was watching to see like how they were acting with each other. Like, did they
Ah.
have something for, were they interested because she had such a her feelings about Candy were so conflicted,
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
could
that's messy.
could she still be close to Candy knowing this? Were Xander and her sister still interested in each other? So there was that piece about how would Karina behave if she knew. So that was the one I wrestled with the most.
Yeah, I feel like Karina would lose her mind, but you know what? We'll never know.
We may not ever know, or we may know later.
She wouldn't have been able to sit on that. She was popping off at the mouth too much. Dang, Candice, why everything gotta be about you? Why? She would have been
Well,
able to
there's
hold on to it.
also the idea that if I had another idea about whether Candy would survive,
Oh, wait a minute now.
Oh,
Hey.
hold
Survive.
up.
Yeah,
well,
that
the same person that hung up the phone might not have been able to deal with Candace being in her life because with
Oh.
Oh.
could she handle the idea of Candace coming back and possibly taking over as the mother of Samaya, as the potential lover of Xander? Could her brain handle that potential loss?
My brain could not handle that potential loss.
oh
That's a lot.
that went
I
all the
cannot
way
handle
That's a
up.
that.
lot.
So I really struggled with, did Karina have any mental health issues that we wanted to address?
Mm. Wow.
He could, for sure.
Or would that be just too much in one book?
Never. Never
Never
too
too
much.
much. Never too much mess.
Well, we have the potential book for book two.
Okay, so how many more books we got to get you to sell before we can get book two? Because
Well, we gotta get some other book clubs. If we could get other book clubs reading,
okay,
then that's a way. I was really so pleased that you all found the book, because this is a way for word to get out. So I was very appreciative of that. I think that's one way to do it. Yeah, I think again, it's not so much it's more about making sure that for lack of a better word, the message or the themes are resonating with folks. I just want to make sure that I'm on track and that there are people that are hearing it and feeling it. So book two is in the mix. It's just like I'm just losing. There's no money to be made at this point. It's just what do you want to lose as you go forward?
right.
Right.
Well, shout out to D because D found the book and he brought it to me and Kim. And then when I posted about it, your niece, which is my old high school friend Tiara, she was like, "Oh," she was like, "You should read it." I was like, "You are gonna read it." And then she was like, "Do you want me to send you a copy?" I was like, "Wait a minute, is this a spam page?" Because I was like, it's too much of a coincidence that D brings us the book, and now you're asking me about this book. Like, you trying to scam me? So I'm glad that Dee found it and brought it to us, and I'm glad that we decided to pick this book as our first book of the month because it
Oh
did
my
not
God.
disappoint at all.
Well, Dee, I don't know how you found me, but I thank you so much.
No problem. But I do have a question.
Yes.
If you was reading Done in the Dark for the first time like us, who
Mhm.
would you blame for the death of the parents?
Oh my.
It is, you know,
Messy.
when it comes down to it, Dad was the one at fault. He know better. He know better.
Not Dad. I don't think we were expecting that answer.
Oh,
Let's hear
yeah.
this.
What does Dad do it? Alex didn't know he know better. Going out there, he know he didn't have no business being out there
True.
in the streets in that janky car out there on the railroad tracks. He know better.
Even
He
Mama
is
Ella
not
said
supposed to
it.
be
She
out
said
there.
he knew better.
He did.
No, he was not supposed to be out there in those streets in that janky car, and then in the middle of the railroad tracks. He had better street sense than that. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. But
Definitely agree. But I will say, in the mind of a parent, all that goes out the window. He was trying to find his baby girl, and he didn't care what happened.
it did.
Clearly.
Clearly.
He did. And Jewel couldn't let him go by himself because she knew he didn't have no sense. I mean, it was what it was. I think that this is why people don't like Karina because she put it in motion.
Mm-hmm.
Candace shouldn't have jumped, snuck out and all of that. But, who thinks that far in advance? All of these things are true. When it comes down to it, this is when, how do you point the finger at anybody? Right? Like who thinks ahead? I
Yeah.
can't say it's Karina's fault because
I
she,
can.
you can't.
Yeah. It was definitely her fault. It was her fault.
So I have a follow-up question in line to this. So this is kind of a like a what came first, the chicken or the egg? So
Mhm.
in your opinion, what do you think was like the pivotal moment that kind of put all of this into action? Was it Candy's poor decisions as a teenager, or was it more so Karina's jealousy that triggered everything to happen after?
You know, and this is okay, so this is the problem. Both things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm going to take it back, and this is the parental piece. That this is why I ended up saying it was the parents, because all this has been going on. Candy been sneaking out. Candy
Mm-hmm.
This is not the first time Candy snuck out. It's been happening. Karina's been having all kinds of issues about being jealous, being left out. The parents missed it. They missed the fact
Mm.
that this has been going on. It's been going on for a while. Candy's got a routine. She she got a whole go bag. She got makeup removers. She got a boyfriend that's coming to pick her up from school. This has been happening for a little while, and these parents are good parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not from this broken home. These are good parents that are on top of things they think. But this is also during the time that crack is hitting the streets and stuff is happening on the streets. And so this is a reminder, I think, and this is part of the discussion piece,
Mm-hmm.
that even when you think you've got it, right? You're a good parent, you're taking care of your kids, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Are we paying good enough attention? Are we blowing stuff like, oh well, kids, yeah, they're not getting along, because the dad says, I know you guys, I don't remember exactly what he says, but I know you guys have been kind of apart lately, but that's going to happen, as you get older. But they weren't really paying attention, because if they really
Yeah.
paying attention, they realize that this has been festering.
Mm.
And this break between the girls, that's just not, something little. For Karina to be blowing up like this, there's something deeper going on. And that something deeper has been festering for a while. And so yes, it's come to a head. And that night, Karina says something that throws everything, and yes, they end up dying and all. And that's all this big stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a reminder to us that things are going on with our teenagers, that may seem like little things that, oh, you can't be paying attention to everything and they're not going to get along all the time. But those little things add up. And if we're not careful, excuse me, but shit's going to hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
When it hits the fan, it's splattering everywhere.
Right.
And so, did Karina telling on Candy put things in motion that night? Things are already in motion. Just nobody was paying attention. So,
You know what? I'm very happy that you gave that, because even after reading this, and I'm a parent, that didn't even cross my mind. And I don't know how it didn't, but after hearing you explain it, you're absolutely right.
there's one little to the people that signed up for the Tam Fam. I said I was going to give all these exclusives. I didn't have time to do it, but I did give one. I was like, I'm going to give all these hidden chapters and this, that, and other. I got one hidden chapter that I gave, but the one that I gave was what happened the day at school, the day that Karina did it. And that particular day she was just fed up because here once again,
Mm-hmm.
the boy that she really liked is paying all this attention to Candace once again. So this is just like things keep just piling up and piling up, and Candy didn't even know. She didn't pay that. She didn't do anything to her on purpose, but
Yeah.
stuff is piling up for Karina, and she's just. But if we know what's going on with our kids, and it's hard, and it's hard. I raised teenage girls, but then I've got the next level. I've got a teenage granddaughter who just started at Clark, but she started at 16 as a freshman at Clark. I've got a 13-year-old grandson. I'm telling you, I know right now how hard it is to really be in touch with what's going on with in their heads right in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But when something happens and like I said, stuff is hitting the fan, that's just what you're seeing right then. What happened along the way to get them there? And so did Karina snitching start this? Well, it's
Yes.
the catalyst. Yes, that night it started some stuff, but whatever happened leading up to her snitching, we could have stopped it
Right.
2 days before, 3 days before, 5 days before.
Yeah.
So
can we go ahead?
I was gonna say, is there anybody else that has any more questions? Anyone?
I want to double back. I want to double back to Nick. So there's no way he thought she was a virgin that long. And then when she went to go visit him in jail, he thought she worked at a bookstore.
Oh, he knew that was BS.
Yeah.
I think if you read that carefully,
Yeah.
Nick was like,
yeah, because I was like,
want to believe the truth.
I was like, he can't be that slow. No way.
No, at that
No
point,
way.
Nick didn't think he was, and at that point, Nick didn't think he was. I mean, at that point, he knew she wasn't a virgin at the bookstore.
Oh, okay.
At the bookstore, he was. This was after they were married, and he
Right.
knew that she was in the street and stuff. But she was supposed to not be doing certain things.
Right.
At that point, and that's when he was like, "Uh-oh." He knew she was high. He knew she was doing. He knew
because some parts Nick was losing me for a minute. I was like, nah, you can't. Nah.
No,
I know you're not believing all this, man.
Now, if you read that part again, he was supposed to be letting her know.
Right.
The point was at that point that he was checking her like, I know what you're doing. Because at that point, I believe Nick was expecting her to behave a certain way while he was in jail, and Candy kind of gone off, on her own, doing some things. But before that, when Nick was in juvie and Candy was doing what she wanted to do, why he believed that, I would say there's a lot of young men that would prefer to believe that their girlfriends are not doing anything like that if it wasn't with them. It's
I got you.
my experience.
Right.
Understandable, but she did swear up and down she was a virgin. So
that's the thing.
Well,
and then to lose it to a man that you just met in the midst of all that chaos is like, girl.
well, and why would she do that?
Oh, one more question. What happened to the girl that Xander got pregnant? What happened to her?
Hmm.
She got that abortion.
What?
Well, did she?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Did she? Yeah.
she got some money to get an
She
abortion.
just disappeared. Yeah.
And why would she leave school like that?
Right.
Oh, I forgot she left
Right.
school.
Xander didn't seem to care to follow up on that, did he?
Nope.
Oh, so she could be in book 2.
Listen,
And what do y'all think about Xander? Just as a person, just like as a character, what do y'all think about Xander?
It was trash.
I kind of liked him, but
Why you think trash? What's that about?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
He was okay.
Yeah, he was feeling himself too much.
I kind of feel like he overreacted a little bit about not being told
Exactly.
about
Typical privileged man. Exactly.
about Tamaya, because I get it that you want to know, but at the same time, you knowing wouldn't have changed anything. So you being so upset about this family secret that really had nothing to do with you, because whatever happened with you and Rayna was going to happen anyway, and that wouldn't have stopped you from adopting the baby. So why does it matter? Why are you so upset about that? Like, I get being lied to, but in my mind, it wasn't that big of a deal.
And if it was, if for him to think that it was such a big deal, or him to decide that her not telling him everything was such a big deal, are we not hearing? Maybe we're just not hearing things about Xander and his feelings about how he should be treated, or what he thinks marriage is about, or how he thinks women should interact with him. Maybe we just haven't heard that.
Okay, I'm gonna take that hint.
I'm just saying, I just wonder, because it did seem like a pretty big overreaction.
Yeah.
But when he reacted like that, it was after he saw that picture.
Guilty conscience.
He saw the picture. He just hadn't said anything about the picture. But
the audacity when he got that girl pregnant and never told her about it, and we don't know where she is. The absolute audacity of you being fake mad for no reason, because this didn't have anything to do with you. And she even said it wouldn't have changed anything. I don't think it would have.
And
he got that girl pregnant. I wonder what else he was doing in college.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He need to sit it right on down.
Right.
I mean, he had to tell that because he couldn't get out of it because him and Elliot couldn't fix it. So he told that, but I don't know what else he was doing that he didn't have to tell.
Mm-hmm. I hope I get to find out.
Okay, so book 2, Sophie's popping up at the house.
Anybody have any thoughts about Elliot and the other, and Sonia?
I think they're gonna end up together.
I like them. Why not?
Yeah, I like them.
What about just as individual people, whether they're together or not? Do they strike you? Anything about them strike you as worth following up on?
I think they played their side character roles very well. They wasn't really in the mix too much. They said what needed to be said. I liked how Elliot kept Xander, in check a little bit, but also he figured out that Xander wasn't really being forthright with him. And I think Elliot really, I think he has some good advice that he could give to Xander if Xander was being more open and honest with him, because he seems like he would be the one to be able to pull Xander in if he started to spiral, if that makes sense.
I kind of agree.
Elliot seems to be have a whole love life we haven't heard about too much.
Right.
I also kind of wondered about their past together, Elliot and Xander's past. like growing up together so closely, like getting more into what they know about each other, like their past lives before uh he met Karina and all that.
I see somebody thought Elliot was real. That would have been interesting. I didn't think of that.
Oh, I did want to say I loved how you added real life characters or real life people to the book with Felix,
Oh,
with
the
the
Mitchell.
Kingpin. I really enjoyed that aspect of the story.
Yeah, I wanted to ground it in reality, make sure so that people knew, what was happening in real life at the time and how it was affecting the way people move. Um, did anybody watch Snowfall?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I did. Good show. Good
So
show.
it was that was the time period that
Oh
this
yeah.
hitting and starting in, but it was in Oakland. So, when I say that was what was starting to happen in Oakland is when it was starting to happen in Snowfall. And so understanding that these teenagers were just about to hit in that situation puts you in the mind of how dangerous it was about to be for Candy and Nick and.
Yeah, because Rayna had put the she had Googled all the information about Felix and put it into our group chat. And that was crazy that Candy was even like so close to all of that.
And they were not raised like that.
No, but that's usually how it happens though,
Hmm?
Well, Miss
unfortunately.
Martin, thank you so much for sitting with us because you really didn't have to.
No,
But I
no,
do
no. This is
appreciate.
this is research for me. You all are helping me so much, and I really appreciate it.
So
Yes.
I have one more question before you leave.
Of course.
So far as the playlist, those particular songs you picked, does those songs come to mind as you was writing? How you decide those songs? I know you said that they put you in the feel of the characters, but those particular songs, did they come to mind as you wrote?
Some of them came to mind as I wrote, and some of them I looked back to say, like, okay, what were the, I looked back at the time period to say,
Mhm.
okay, let me make sure what was really top of the charts during that time. And
Right.
then to be honest, I was like, and then what was I listening to?
Right.
And
Okay.
the people I
Okay.
knew listening to, because whether it was top of the charts or not, I was like, nah, that's not what we
Mm.
were listening to.
Yeah,
Because
because
I
I was.
had people in my life that were in that life
Mhm.
and people that weren't. And so I wanted to be able to balance
Right.
the two.
It was a nice playlist. I enjoyed
Thank you. I'm so glad.
Oh, okay. This is fun.
it.
I see let's see, Sequoia said she would like to read the conversation that was had on the way to Sonia's house between her and Eli. Yes, I agree. Sonia and Eli trying to figure out, like, okay, now what just happened? What just happened? Trying to try at the end, trying to put those pieces together. Because as close as they are to Xander and to Karina, they don't know all of it. Uh,
True.
so I think you're right. There's potential for Sonia and Elliot to try to figure some things out. There's potential there for those characters to grow because they're godparents to Samaya as well. So I would just say that there's one of the things that I'm hoping for with this book. Yes, there's a book two, maybe there's a book three. There's a potential for this to be an anchor for to go lots of different ways. I really like the idea of writing historical fiction.
Mm,
Um, and I think that I can branch into that still using this book as the anchor because all of these characters, if you go back, they all have, ancestors, right?
Hmm.
And so if I want to talk about, for instance, in Izora, and Azora has a story. We don't, and Azora and Uncle Franklin. Well, how did Uncle Franklin pass? But how did Azora get the money to buy up that land all
right.
on the side of the highway in Texarkana? Where she get that money from? At her age, and if you go back, there's a story there to how she got the money to get that land and who she had to fight to get that money and hold on to that land. And that's where some historical that's a story that I want to get into, or how Xander's parents, um, the mom broke away from her privileged family to marry the dad who comes from Georgia who didn't have money, but some kind of way there's a story there about his people and how they came to be, and her people that came from a whole different kind of uh Black elite society. And so we can get into these different types of history and Black people and where they come from and how they come together, still all anchored in our done in the dark folks and their secrets and who tells what and when. So that's sort of how I'd like to branch out and still have our main folks here.
Do you have any stories in that bag that you lifted up that's almost done?
Listen, put it on Wattpad, girl.
Oh yeah.
We want to read it.
Novellas you want to put out?
I got some little stories. I just gotta figure out how to make it work.
Right.
I'm working on it.
Okay. All right.
I will always look to you all as my base. You all are my base. And so I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you. So I hope that you will go on to my website at least to give me your email addresses. If I get your email addresses, then I can tell you what's going on and use you as a base to share. And by having that base of folks, it helps to, I need an agent. If I can get an agent, then I can get, help moving it forward. But you got to be able to prove that there's people that want to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
So when you do get finished with book 2, if you do need a street team, an art team, we are here for you. Always reach out to us. We got you.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
I need some
Thank you
data
so
readers.
much for taking the time with us today. We really appreciated this. We love the book.
Thank you.
So we're here. If you write anything else, we'll read it. We'll review it. No worries.
And you said book 2 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see.
After tomorrow. I may send y'all a little like, hey, did you know this about Nick? Did you know this about so and so? And
okay.
See what you
say. We can
get. Sounds good. I appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Send recording if you would, Rayna, when you figure out how to do it.
I'm gonna figure it out.